The best thing about the pentose phosphate pathway is you don't have to memorize it. Because of that fact, we can look at it in a more holistic view as far as why on earth it's useful, what it's good for in the cell, and what happens with it. When I took Biochem 1, I had to memorize it. And that was terrible. And we'll take a look at why that is. But we'll also take a look at why it's useful and what you can get out of it, because that's why it's useful. This is also known as the hexose monophosphate shunt, or the phosphogluconate pathway. I know it best as the pentose phosphate pathway, so that's what I will be calling it. The thing is that cells do require NADPH for reductive biosynthetic reactions. That was something we looked at in that overview of metabolism. We haven't really seen a lot of things that require NADPH, but that's mostly because of the units that we're in Biochem 1. So the pentose phosphate pathway is going to allow glucose to actually provide reducing power. So those are going to be electrons in the form of NADPH, as well as carbon compounds for biosynthetic reactions. The main thing with this pathway is it's going to produce ribose 5-phosphate, which is going to go into nucleic acid biosynthesis. So there's two main parts of this pathway. The first part are the oxidative processes, which will produce NADPH, as well as the 5 non-oxidative steps. This is mostly in the cytosol of the liver and the adipose cells, and you actually do need NADPH in the cytosol for fatty acid synthesis. Which, for those of you that are like, why would we want fatty acid synthesis? Cell membranes. We need those things. So this is just an overview to show you. So whenever we're looking at those oxidative steps, those are going to be those first steps that are there in that orange color, and then the steps below it are the steps that are the non-oxidative steps. And again, we're going to look at these more closely. Those oxidative steps, we're going to start with glucose 6-phosphate to go to 6-phosphogluconate to go to ribulose 5-phosphate. And those two steps will actually produce 1 molecule of NADPH per step. So that's going to give us that reductive power. The next step from there gets us started into those non-oxidative pathways. But what happens here then is that ribulose 5-phosphate it's made into either that ribose 5-phosphate, or ribulose 5-phosphate could also be made into that xylulose 5-phosphate. That ribose 5-phosphate is what then goes on for nucleic acid biosynthesis. What you'll notice here, you see some molecules on the top, some molecules on the bottom, is essentially this is assuming that you have 2 molecules of that ribulose 5-phosphate, one which goes off to ribose 5-phosphate, the other that goes to xylulose 5-phosphate. Then if you took the molecule of ribose 5-phosphate and the molecule of xylulose 5-phosphate, that would get you 1 molecule of cetoheptulose 7-phosphate and 1 molecule of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Those two things combined would get you a molecule of erythrose 4-phosphate and fructose 6-phosphate. So from there, the fructose 6-phosphate goes easily into glycolysis, but you're left with this erythrose 4-phosphate. So what you can then do is take the erythrose 4-phosphate and another molecule of xylulose 5-phosphate to get glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So that was just to kind of try to walk you through what all of the arrows are doing. This is kind of a good one to play a carbon counting game to see if you can figure out where everything is coming from. At a glance, this is fairly terrible. It's not so bad when you pause everything and take a look at where everything is going. There's 3 main things that we're going to get out of this pathway. One is that NADPH, to use in other anabolic pathways. The other is going to be that ribose 5-phosphate to go with nucleic acid biosynthesis. And the last thing are going to be glycolytic intermediates. So the fact that we can get this pathway all the way back to fructose 6-phosphate as well as glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Yes, that last option is going to be a little bit strange since you started with glucose 6-phosphate. Which also is out of the glycolysis pathway. But that's going to allow us to recycle things really well as we go through this. So the fact that you can start with something from glycolysis and end with something from glycolysis allows this pathway to be useful for recycling things and getting what you need.